Hello, dear book dragons. Happy June. I have so many books that I'm looking forward to read this summer. So before I actually start talking about the books I read in May, I just want to go through some new books that I bought that I'm really excited to read. And I have lots of books here I also want to read this summer, but I have to show you. I read several books by Joanna Ruth Meyer this spring, and she's really a new favorite author of mine. So I'm really looking forward to read this duology, which is her. This is her newest book that she just came out this spring. So I'm so excited to read those. And I'm also very excited to read The Everlasting. I've heard so many good things about this book. Really excited about that. I don't think I read anything by her before. Well, yes, I do. I have. I have read The 10,000 Days of January. I thought so. It was her. That was a really good book. So very excited about that. And then I'm also very excited to read Enchanting the Fae Queen by Stephanie Burgess. I read her first book, or the first book in the series, last autumn maybe, or a year ago, and I saw this at the Swedish book sale in February, and I was like, ooh, now's the time to buy the second book. And this is really light and fun. And in April I read a new favorite author of mine, Patricia A. McKillip, and The Forest of Sarah, which was so good. So excited, and that was a loan from the library, and I decided I have to buy one of her books. And this is one of her most popular books, The Forgotten Beasts of End. And I have ordered another book that hasn't come yet, Alphabet of Thorn. So I'm really excited to read those books this summer. And so it's a lot of new books. And this is also a second book, The Ballad of Falling Dragons of Sarah A. Parker, which I might read this in the autumn. It's maybe a little bit too big and a little bit too dark to read in the summer. I don't know. We will see. And this is also a second book, The Tapestry of Fate by Shannon Chakraborty, which just came out. Well, both of these just came out. I ordered them as soon as they were able to buy, and look at this beautiful little map. Gorgeous. Really excited to read this book too. First book, so good, so fun. And then I wanted to show you 2 sticker books that I ordered a while ago. So I have to show you because they're so really, really nice stickers. And there are lots of pictures of books actually, or houses and books. Look at this. I just put some in my book diary for June. It's like a little hobbit hole. It's kind of a mix of pictures, but I really like these. And I also got Forest Fairies, Mushrooms and Goblins, which has a mix of poetry, like here, Rumi. Every forest branch moves differently in the breeze, but as they sway, they connect at the roots. And it's full of these beautiful fairy stickers, and also some ugly goblins, and also like how to make a fairy crown. And they have, look at these. So many pretty stickers, and how many are they? There's over 500 unique stickers. So I can really recommend this book if you like stickers, and if you like poetry about fairies, because there's quite a lot of them. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I really recommend this. Let's go to the books. Oh, no, before I go to the books I have read, I want to show you what I've started reading. This big, heavy book. This is a Swedish classic, Agnes from Krusenstjerna, the Sisters von Palen, which I started reading quite a lot of years ago, maybe. Must have been at least 6 years ago, so maybe 8. And it's really good. It's beautiful writing. I think I read more than half of it, and I got really angry at a person in the book, a doctor who was so full of himself, he wanted to side over other people. But I've really been thinking about this book for many years that I wanted to go back to it. So I decided this will be my summer project. And I counted the pages and realized if I do read 25 pages a day, this will be finished in June. But there's also a second book. This is part 1 to 4, but then it's also 5 to 7. And I won't be able to read every day because this is a little bit heavy to bring with me at midsummer. So I think I'll still try to write 25 pages every day when I can. So I'll finish this sometime in July, and then I'll read the second book. And I won't bring that on holiday either, but when I'm at home. And this summer I will mostly be at home, even though 2 weeks away at Frederick's parents. But now let's go to the books that I read in May. And I read 7 books in May. And I think I already shown you the stickers that I put in that book. And here's a mix of the flower pictures and the fairy pictures. And this is my setup for June. I'm really happy with that. So, yes, 7 books in May. And the first one I read, which I've been looking forward to for a whole year, is The Antiquarian's Object of Desire by India Holton. India Holton writes so funny. She's so clever and funny, and it's full of little, let's just call it in English, full of, full of other literature. And you can see I put little notes in here. And this is about two historians. And as in all her books, there's a bit of magic in every book. And this set in Oxford, well, it starts in Oxford. And I guess it's late 1800 something, you might say. Maybe not. Let's see. Well, no, doesn't matter. But it's about Amelia and Caleb, and they've been friends since they were really young at school. They became friends at school when they were both lonely. But now that they're grown up and they're both working at this historical department as historians, they have kind of to pretend to hate each other, so they won't be accused of being too close, and maybe Amelia will lose her job because at this time it was frowned upon to be, well, too close to your colleagues. And if you read anything by her, you know this is so witty, so funny, quite crazy. I would say that her latest books, this series of the series of university people. Sorry, I'm tired of losing words. They're not as crazy as her first 3 books. books, because there are no flying houses in this book. And there's no crazy pirate fighting, but there is a lot of fighting with words instead, and there are some strange things happening. Of course there are. These two are sent away into the countryside, and Caleb hates the countryside. He's a real snob when it comes to what he wants to do, and always looking nice, and Amelia doesn't really care. She's just about the studies, and they're so funny. They have this conversation going into this mansion somewhere in, I think, south of Scotland, but they only say Cumbria, so they don't actually say Scotland. They have this conversation about literature, because he loves books, and she likes books, but she only reads like real books. She reads books about people that has lived, and I just have to read this for you. And they're on the way to this Ravenscroft Manor. "You're a darling," he counted, unwrapping the sweet. "At least this weather is appropriate for our journey to a place called Ravenscroft Manor." "What do you mean?" Caleb cocked his head to smile at her with mild astonishment. "Have you never read The Mysteries of Udolpho?" "No." "The House of Seven Gables? Wuthering Heights? I know. You surely read Jane Eyre." Amelia frowned slightly. "Eyre? Is she related to true love the Eyre who fought at the Battle of Hastings?" A laugh burst from Caleb's throat and lit his eyes. "Sweetheart, tell me you read fiction. Any fiction." "I read Shakespeare," Amelia replied a little sniffly. Then, after a moment's uncomfortable silence, she was forced by honesty to add, "Although only because we had to at school. Can't say I liked it much." So they're very different, but they're so adorable and sweet. And just a lovely book. So this was a 5-star book for me. Maybe not for everyone, but for me. And the second book I read was also 5-star, and I don't have it here because it's a library book and I had to give it back. And that was The Fox Wife by Yang Shi-Shu, which also was a 5-star, I think. And it's such a unique, haunting, and fascinating book. It's quite a big book. I'm so sad I can't show you. It has a beautiful cover. It looks like a wintry book because on the cover it's like snow everywhere. There's this woman on the front in red in the snow. But it was for one of my book clubs that I'm in that I read it. And I was so glad I did. It was, wow, it was just so beautiful. And it's like a detective story. You follow this detective who's looking up murder, and we also follow a woman who is a fox person. She's not an ordinary human. She can be a fox or a human, and she's lived for hundreds or maybe thousands of years. And she is looking for the murder of her daughter. And it was just so good. And it's set in China in 1908. It's and this detective Bao, he can't lie. No, sorry, he can detect when others lie. He can lie, but it hurts him if he lies. And these two stories, they kind of interact more and more, and I mean, you know, they will meet at some point. And yeah, it was just so fascinating. So it's like, that's like a historical fantasy, you could say. Yeah, it was so good. And then I read another library books that I don't have here, and that's The Darling Buds of May. Very different. I give that like 3 stars. It was funny. It was quite silly. It was really thin. I was so surprised when I got it at the library because I've seen other people talk about this book, and it didn't look that thin on YouTube when I've seen other people talking about it. That's so delightful and so funny, and I wonder if I got like an easy version or something. I think I might. It didn't really actually say explicitly that this is abridged, but I think it was. But yeah, it's just about this family who don't pay their taxes. They live out in the countryside in England, and this taxman arrives, and they just kind of lure him into their happy life to make him stop thinking about the taxes. And their 17-year-old daughter, who kind of, yeah, he just falls head over heels in love for her. And it was funny, but it was also very silly, I would say. And actually, it's a series. There's several books, and there's a TV series made of it. And Catherine Zeta-Jones was in this when she was 16, 17, I think. So that was the first film she was in, and then she became famous and moved to Hollywood. So that's interesting. And then I read a Swedish book, Den som följer en stjärna vänder inte om. Those who follows the star doesn't turn around. Something like that. By Malin Havind. And this was a really, really interesting book about real people. About Malin Blomsterberg, who was a cook and a daughter from a shoemaker. And in the summer 1914, she walked from Skåne, which is really south of Sweden, up to Östergötland, which is further up. It took her several weeks anyway to go and see Ellen Key, who is a very famous person in Sweden, and I think I assume she is famous outside of Sweden as well. She's written several books. Mostly she's famous for her work for children's rights and women's rights and workers' rights. So she has been a very important person and part of our history, and I think in maybe other countries as well. And Malin, who did this walk, for her Ellen Key was like a star. She really looked up her so much, and she just had to meet her. And because she's been, even if she had this poor life being a shoemaker's daughter, she's been lucky enough to be able to read and learn more than most people did in her place in society. And she's working in this family and decides, no, I'm going to leave now. I just have to go and meet Ellen Key. And this is a real story. I mean, this happened for real, and it's so fascinating. It's also quite hard to read. It was this tragic story, and I haven't read anything else about Malin or Ellen Key, so I don't know what's true and what's not true, because a lot of things are just her thoughts, and we can definitely not know what she was thinking. And the beginning of the book starts with the end of the book, kind of the tragedy of the end. So you know what will happen. And we get to meet a lot of famous Swedish authors in this book, because they all go and visit Ellen Key in her beautiful house by this big lake. And the interesting thing is, because I decided to read this at this time in May, because we were traveling with my choir to the very south of Sweden, and I thought it would be nice to read a book that is set in Sweden, in the countryside, and going past Vättern, where Ellen lived, down to Skåne, where Malin came from. So we went past places with our bus, places that were mentioned in this book. And this is, it starts 1914, so it's quite a lot about the war as well, it's the First World War. And but it's mostly about Malin's life as working for Ellen Key. in her house, being her friend, but also being her like cook and server and everything. So she did everything for her, and it wasn't mentioned in this book, but on the bus down with my choir was a girl in my choir who said she's just seen a musical about this, and in the musical, Ellen kind of saved Marlin from a horrible marriage, which was not mentioned at all in this book. So I don't know what's true. That was a little bit confusing, also interesting. And Marlin just adores Ellen, but she also kind of resents her more and more, because even Ellen is actually really working for the women's rights and the workers' rights. She doesn't really see the women that works in families. I mean, all the people working for someone else, she doesn't understand how that is. She's kind of totally blind for how much work it is in a kitchen, or in everything you have to do in a home. So that's really frustrating. I gave it 4.2 stars because it is hard to read. It is, you feel so sorry for Marlin, and it's a frustrating read because it's kind of also very repetitive. Like every time there come people to visit, she's kind of stressed about that, but she's also interested in meeting them. And of course, interesting to hear about them, but the repetition and the stress takes down the enjoyment of the reading. And yeah, I learned so much about Swedish history and different poets and artists, and it was really interesting. And it's so interesting because there's in Stockholm there's a place called Toridsplan, and I haven't really thought about why it's called that, but in this book I got to meet the poet Thomas Torild, who lived in the 1700s, and he had this saying, "Denna dag ett liv," this day a life, which I recognize from Astrid Lindgren. And Astrid Lindgren got it from visiting Ellen Key's house, because of course it is a museum nowadays, so you can visit the house and you can see this line of "Denna dag ett liv" in the roof, I think, or at the wall. So that impressed Astrid and everyone who's looked at the films from Y på Saltkråkan. There's a man there saying this, "Denna dag ett liv." So it's a lot of fun coincidences for me as a Swedish person reading this book. Let's go on. Then I read a very fantastical, fun, fantasy, sweet, romantic book, The Swan's Daughter by Roshani Shoksi. And this was just so fun to read. I gave it 4.5 stars. It's romantic, it's sweet, it's very light-hearted, but also kind of a little bit of darkness. It's about Demelza, who is a daughter of a Veritas Swan, and a Veritas Swan can make people tell the truth. And she's also daughter of a kind of evil wizard. And Demelza is quite different from her sisters because she doesn't have any wings. She just looks like a human, but very colorful. And so it's a story about her, but it's also a story about a prince, Prince Aris, who has to marry. I mean, he's a prince, has to marry, and he knows marrying will also kill him. He will kind of get into his second life as a tree, because that's what apparently happens to his royal family. You're turned into a tree when you start your second life. So you can hear this book is just full of so much fun details, so much interesting, silly magic, and And this is full of friendship and love, first love, and yeah, it was just really, really fun to read. I can really, really recommend it. I thought it would turn dark. I shouldn't say more, but it's lighter than you think. And then I read Evil Uprooted by Emily Arentz, who has the book club that I'm in, where we read classical books. Look how pretty this is. So I have actually signed by her, because I ordered it online where you could have it signed. It says, "Dear Matilda, happy reading." And I really, really enjoyed this book. I gave this also 4.5 stars. It's set in England in 1815, so it's in the shadow of Waterloo's aftermath. And there's a little village called Wickbury, where we meet several people. And we meet Catherine, who lives in a cottage outside, and also a young woman, Eloise, who is the daughter of one of their doctors. So they actually have two doctors in this little village, which I found a little bit odd, but yeah. And the other doctor, the two doctors kind of hate each other, and the other doctor's son, Edward, is in love with her. So this is a book full of love triangles, you could say. and she's written it, I mean, it is a modern book, it's written now, but she's tried to make it sound old. And yeah, she did really well. I really enjoyed it. There were some parts where you get like the moral of the story, which I found a little bit odd. I mean, it wasn't anything wrong with the actual moral, but it was just who is saying this. For me, it felt a little bit strange. So that's why it's not really a 5-star. Otherwise, maybe I would give it a 5-star. And I also found it a little bit odd that this little village had a hospital and two doctors and kind of I've forgotten the name of it. So it feels like a small village, but I guess it must be more like a town. It's just little details, but the actual writing and these people are really well fleshed out. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. I read it quite fast. And this little fox here is a friend of Catherine. And there's a little boy who comes and sees her every day, I think. And she's kind of hiding from the village. We know as a reader she has some kind of secret. Not really sure what, but she has one. And in the beginning of the book, she takes care of an injured man who's been shot. And she quickly realizes that he is a French spy. So it's a lot of intrigue, a lot of, maybe not mystery, well, a little bit of mystery, but a lot of action. I can really, really recommend it. It's a delightful read. And the last book I read was also fantasy, more fantasy. I mean, some of these were more like historical fantasy. And that was Brigands and Bread Knives by Travis Baldree. And this is the third book that he's written in this world. And I enjoy them all. This is more, I mean, Legend and Lattice, his first book, is the book that kind of started the cozy fantasy era. But this is much more full of adventure. So this is different from the first two books, where you're in the same place all the time. But in this book, we follow Fern, who is a little ratkin from the second book. And Fern moves to the town where Viv, I mean, the Viv is the person we follow in the first two books. But in this book, Viv is only there in the kind of beginning, even if she's mentioned quite a lot. But Fern is this little raccoon, has a bookshop from the second book, and she moves to Viv's town to start up a bookshop there instead. But she very quickly, within a week, I think, realizes she's still not happy. She feels this emptiness inside, and she doesn't really know what it is. She feels very lost. So she gets very drunk one night with her, at least a new friend she's gotten, but she kind of just goes to sleep in an old wagon, and when she wakes up, she has left town with this oath maiden, Asterix, who's an old elf who's been fighting for her hundreds of years, I guess. That's what she's been doing for many, many years. And they kind of become friends. Asterix doesn't want to turn around and give her back. She's like, yeah, you just have to come along to the next town, and then you can go home. And Asterix has this goblin, Syl, I think. Yeah, she has a captive, a very strange goblin called Syl, which a lot of people are looking for. And Syl is really funny. And Asterix also has a talking sword, which is really fun. And it's just a lot of adventure and their friendship growing and just crazy stuff happening, and I enjoyed it so much. I laughed a lot, and I also got a bit emotional. So yeah, that was also 4.5 stars read for me. It's maybe a little bit more because it actually made me laugh and it made me cry. So maybe I should say 4.8. And yeah, so those were the books I read in May. I would love to hear what you read in May and what you're looking forward to read this summer. So have a happy June reading month. Bye.